So this episode comes out on December 19th, which is my birthday. So what'd you guys get me for my birthday?
Well, I can't tell you, obviously.
You actually already know what I'm getting you for your birthday. I just can't ship it yet because you're going on vacation.
I'm going on vacation, yes.
I'm so bad at... Okay, I am a very good gift giver, and then but I'm like, I am a youngest child anytime I get gifts, because I want to, even if I have to wait a long-ass time, like... The person that I have for our secret gift exchange, I have had gifts since, like, last December.
Oh my God.
Knowing that I would have this person and being like, this is perfect, and I have had to just sit on my hands.
You're like, this is my time.
No, I'm really the worst. Like, I'll order something for someone in my household. And I'm like, this is perfect.
I love that.
Well, no, and it'll come in the mail. And so, like, my partner's Christmas presents, they've had since, like, August when I ordered them. Because I was like, oh my God, it's here. I'm so excited to have it now. Have it now. Have it now. Have it now.
Yeah.
I'm like
so
that
I'll
too.
just send you pictures, Caitlin. And then whenever I do mail it.
For our dear listeners who are kind of lost right now, every year we do our own Secret Santa where we draw a name, and this year is like our third year of doing it, so we basically have the last person we haven't had before. Yep. And that's why Bean already knew who wish she was going to have for the Secret Santa.
And they know that I'm sending them stuff.
Yup.
I just want to, on a public platform, make sure that everybody knows that there are high expectations for my birthday present this year.
Wow.
So,
wow. Okay. I've taken note.
Don't let me down. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
okay.
All right. Someone's going to get kicked out of the podcast.
Yeah. It's like Survivor in here.
Yeah. But no, a new podcast episode is a great birthday present. Even, the fact that I had to work to do it. But it's fine.
It's fine.
Great
It's
birthday
fine.
present was the stats that Kristen had the other day.
Oh, yeah.
32 of you have us as your number one podcast.
That's insane.
Are you guys
I
okay?
know.
That's crazy.
So today, as we're recording this, is Spotify Wrapped Day. So we got our stats for the podcast, and we were just blown away. I did not expect us to end up in the top for anybody's podcast, and we don't really have that big of a listenership, but we ended up with like way more numbers than we expected.
Yeah, it was like a nice little thing, because when I opened it today, because like I'm the one that like owns the account that we publish on, and so like I got the email. I was like, check out your Wrapped for podcasting, and I was like, it's probably gonna be depressing. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, this makes me so happy. And so like we have a Discord channel where we kind of just put uplifting things about reasons that we should keep recording and why we do it, and I put it in there because I was like, it's just kind of cool that there's 32 people that listen to us enough that we're their number one podcast.
Thank you for listening to
Always.
us.
Thank you guys so much.
And now,
Let's go. Let's get to it. Let's do what you came here to do and make this podcast so you can listen to it.
and talk about books.
Talk about books.
That's what we do here.
Do we?
A little bit.
Sometimes. At least like 30% of the time.
Yeah.
Hi, and welcome to My Podcast Knows What You Read in the Dark, a book club podcast made by chaotic people for chaotic people. I'm Caitlin,
I'm Lady.
I'm B.
And I'm Kristen.
and we are four friends here to tell you what's what about the books we read and loved this year, or the books we hated this year. That's right, we are doing our yearly recap of all the books we've read this year, and discussing which ones were our favorites, which ones were our least favorites, and which ones just kind of were in the middle. Anybody have any standout hates that they want to start with? We'll get those out of the way.
I fucking hated Lightlark. I hated it so much. It makes me want to commit a murder. There.
Was that this year?
Yes.
Yes.
The first...
It feels like it was 12 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
She's cranking them out.
I aged so badly. I read this in February.
Jesus. Oh god, that means I read A Ruin of Roses this year too. No, I didn't. I read it a second time this year and did it on the podcast.
I can't believe I read that book twice.
I've done worse things.
Yeah, I have two of... I ended up reading one of them for the podcast, but so I have like the little novella from that like terrible misogynist witch story.
Ugh.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm just like, I'm like, oh, that was bad.
Oh, B, you read for the first time this year Twilight.
No comment.
Yeah, I kind of just scrolled past it on my story graph, just like not even acknowledging it.
I rated it the lowest I could rate it at a 0.25 stars.
It's so funny.
I didn't DNF because I was like, I'm reading this for the fucking book club, but
And you had the idea that you would talk about it on the podcast too, which ended up not happening. But that's one of the reasons why you did not DNF it, I think.
yeah, I ended up, and I've sent to the podcast co-hosts, I've sent them my notes where just chapter by chapter I was just like roasting this entire book. But yeah, that happened. I also have some terrible, like, this was the first time I participated in, I forget what they're called, the like the free books from Kindle or whatever days.
The, like, Stuff Your Kindle Day?
Yeah, and so I, like, grabbed a handful of those books and, like, oh, bad choices.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I always look at the list. I've never read a single one.
That is the most shocking thing I've ever heard in my life, that all these free self-published books are bad. That is brand new information.
Yeah. Can't believe.
Give me the confidence of some of these authors.
I know! It's not
Jesus
fair.
fuck. Seriously, though. Like, the B and Lady, I don't know if you know anything about Gothicana, but I sent Kristen this video that I watched where somebody on YouTube recapped that book, and I'll never be the same again.
I want to read it so bad because
I want to read it so fucking bad.
I've heard, yeah, it's come across stuff.
I haven't heard of it, but now that I see that the author's name is Runix,
Yeah,
I know it's gonna be bad.
bad.
You need to watch the YouTube video because it's fucking wild.
I'll send it. It's
Please
fucking
do.
wild. It's like a teacher-student romance. It's really bad.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I've avoided it.
Yeah.
It's also like Gothic Hogwarts. It's stupid.
Oh no. Let Harry Potter die.
I feel like I need to mention the fine print here.
Yeah.
That book fucking sucked.
I guess it's the third one in this series. Is there 3?
Yeah, there's 3.
Anyway, yeah, one of them is on Goodreads, like, nominees
Yeah,
for
it's
the
like-
year for the best books. I was like, oh god, no.
It's like the fine print, terms and conditions, and I don't even know what the other one is called.
Yeah, one of them is a nominee for Goodreads year-end awards.
Yeah. What the fuck, y'all?
I feel like I don't want to say hate, because every time I read one of these books, I have a great fucking time. It's hysterical for me.
Siggy shit.
Yeah, I've read 6 of them this year.
That
Jesus
is
Christ.
I was looking because I was like, I didn't hate it, but we did read Birched by the Krampus.
Yeah, Birch by the Krampus is so boring. It's like the bottom of the barrel as far as Siggy Shade books go. The rest of them, so I've never read any of her mafia romances. Kristen subjected herself to one, but I've read The Loch Ness Monster, Swallowing Water, Stalked by the Boogeyman, Tentacle Entanglement, The Morningwood Tree, and Birch by the Krampus this year. It's just a rip-roaring good time for me. Everybody else is like, I hate this, it's awful, but me and Ariana, like, we have a great fucking time.
I mean, they're hilarious. Like,
They're so funny.
I can't deny that. I will say, like, Birch by the Krampus was really fucking boring.
Yeah.
It was so boring.
And, like, Wicked Lessons, which is the mafia romance, like, it was also boring, and then it was bad. Like, Siggy's, like, niche is weird fucking monster romances, and she needs to stick to it. Trying to do, like, the mafia dark romance thing is not working for her, and she needs to just stop while she's figuratively ahead.
I'm worried about her. She was doing a release every month for the first half of the year, and I haven't heard anything from her since August.
Yeah, it's
So-
concerning.
You gotta re-sign up for that newsletter.
Yeah.
She's made her money. She's gone.
Oh, yeah. I also read the short story you get for signing up for her newsletter, Basilisk.
You didn't. I read Jack's Head. Did you not read that one?
Read what?
Jack's Head?
No, I didn't read that one.
That one is fucking crazy.
Oh, the Sleepy Hollow one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Sleepy Hollow one.
Oh, right, and it was, like, literally the like, actual, like, physics
Yeah,
and
we
mechanics
were trying to
with
discuss
the,
the
like...
physics of the gun penetration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it was
that
like,
one was
that's
crazy.
not possible. That is not how gun barrels work.
I just have
Yeah.
so many questions. Like, I don't think that Siggy knows that yeast infections exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if I had to pick the worst, I guess the worst one for me this year would probably be Birched by the Krampus, just because it was boring.
It's so boring.
Don't count
Yeah.
that one. I need to know another one.
Hey, but in that one, she did account for, like, disease and infection. It was something with, like, Santa could touch her skin and, like, cure her of all disease, right?
Man, I don't know. I
Yeah.
read these books and I
Who
don't
even
even know what
knows?
happens.
Because the dude in Swallowing Water, his, like, cum, I think, has healing properties, and he can also turn it into flavored seltzer water whenever he wants.
What
so
the fuck? I'd forgotten all about that.
yeah, he turns it into, like, flavored seltzer water when she's giving him a blowjob.
Oh my
so
God.
it could really be anything.
I don't really think carbonation would be helpful.
Would be helpful to anybody in either giving or or receiving.
With fellatio. Like, I just don't think...
Yeah.
Imagine being the one who comes the carbonated stuff.
Wouldn't that,
Seriously.
like,
Imagine
burn?
the bubbles.
Yeah, but, like, the bubbles and the, like, tickle at the back of your throat, like, I don't think...
We gotta move on.
I
We gotta move on.
vaguely
We gotta
remember
move on. We gotta
her
move on.
saying something about, like, being very full afterwards, too.
I'm gonna
so
puke.
it's excessive.
I'm gonna puke.
At least it's not as bad as the fire hose cum scene in
Ugh,
the Loch Ness Monster.
Gross.
Honestly, what was the one with, like, he was the broomstick?
That's
Oh, that
Stalked
was
by the
Boogeyman.
Boogeyman. I did that one for the podcast.
Yeah.
He wasn't the broomstick, though. That was a different man in the book was the broomstick. It was her cousin's boyfriend.
That fucked her grandma.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. I hate that I know this. I don't want to know Siggy lore.
I did that one on the podcast, though. You have an excuse for that knowledge.
I know stuff about swallowing water and stuff because every time you read one of these, that's our Discord chat for like 3 days.
I'm like scrolling through my Storygraph, like, for the year, and there are so many of these books that, like, I read, and I don't remember a fucking thing from them. So, like, this must have been bad. The title is Skydiving, Skinny Dipping, and Other Ways to Enjoy Your Fake Boyfriend.
Yeah, I could have told you by the title.
What?
Yep. I don't know what the fuck this was. And for this review, I gave it, like, 1.5 stars. No idea why. And then all I wrote, instead of talking about anything, all I wrote for was just a lot more telling rather than showing. Like, what was I on?
If I had to give Bad a second place, though, outside of Siggy Shade, I would give it to So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. It was the most, like, mid book, I guess. It's supposed to be, like, a cozy fantasy book. It's about the Chosen One and his pack of, you know, lackeys that helped him defeat the dark presence in the kingdom. But they've already defeated him, and it's, like, him trying to adjust to being king, and them, like, you know, I don't know, pulling the kingdom back together and shit. But it was just not written well. It was just, I had to read the line, uncomfortable boner situations.
Okay.
And I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
I had 2 books that I really hated this year, and both of them one of them I made an episode of the podcast about, The Office of Gardens and Ponds, which is
yeah.
the fish
Goodness,
fetish
I was
Japanese.
waiting for you to bring that back up, and it was just like, that fucking
And
book.
yeah, and go listen to that episode if you want to hear more about it.
That's also the Stalked by the Boogeyman episode. Double whammy.
Yeah.
And I read another bad French book which was related to Mayfly. I read Story of the Eye by George Bataille. So both of these I've mentioned in the podcast and they're bad. But I was going through my Storygraph and through a lot of mid-tier books because I read all of Bridgerton books. I remembered the one that I erased from my memory, which is To Sir Philip with Love, Eloise's book.
Yeah, that book fucking sucks.
That book is so fucking bad. There's nothing redeemable about this man. He
So
sucks.
bad.
He's basically just trying to get a wife to mother his 2 kids.
Yeah.
He
Ew.
doesn't want to do any of the work. Not at all. He's only getting a wife so she can do the work for him.
I really hope they improve her story in the show because she's like my favorite character.
Guess I'll never know because I don't have Netflix anymore.
I forgot that you read all the Bridgerton books this year.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had
I
to.
forgot too. Until I see my Storygraph stats and the number 1 is Julia Quinn.
I feel like I have to stick up for myself. That book, that terrible whatever skydiving book, it says I finished it at the very end of April, which checks out because that would have been like right before the AP exams, and I probably was just like, give me something to not think well.
Okay.
You know?
I'll give you a little pass.
As a treat.
Kristen's like, sure, no.
When I was going through my story graph, story graph and
No,
Goodreads.
Kristen's got some embarrassing stuff, so she's not one to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, I had like a very bad depressive episode, like most of the beginning of the year, and I read a lot of dark romance. One series was like in my top series of the year, so I can't judge a single person on this podcast for the things that they
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that was this year. You were going through it.
Yeah.
And we could tell just because of, you were just like churning through those.
Yeah.
We talked about it on more than one podcast episode because I remember we mentioned it. We mentioned how embarrassing your Goodreads was in an episode, and then in our last episode, the episode that came out today, we talked about you reading the Crazy Wicked Psychos.
Yeah,
book.
and like again,
Oh, that one.
That
Oh my
series was like
God.
one of my favorites this year. I ate it up. It was so good.
I know, you were like raving about it, and I was like,
All of us are like, we pretend
when do we do the intervention?
It is
Yeah.
literally just trash, but it is
Yeah.
trash that I
Made for
ate
you.
up every second.
It's made for you.
Yeah.
You talk about it, and there's just crickets on the other side of the conversation.
Oh,
It's like when I
understand.
talk about Ice Planet Barbarians.
yeah.
Just like crickets.
We all get one. We all get one.
Yeah, we all get one like trashy series that we can enjoy, and it's fine.
Do we have any mid-tier books?
Everything else.
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Like, all the other, like, Bridgerton books.
I'll talk about, so, a couple that I brought to the podcast that were, like, mid-tier for me. The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. It was, like, that was the one with the weird relationship between the girl and the little boy because she was clearly projecting all of her childhood trauma onto him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like social child protective services would never let her
No.
adopt a kid based on
No.
what it was like she didn't have a bed.
Yeah.
She was living
didn't
with
have a
other
bed, She
people.
didn't have a car. And, like, I didn't
Like-
say it in the episode, but I should have. It's like, none of these things disqualify you from being a good parent, but they definitely disqualify you in the eyes of social services, and they are not necessarily the bad guys for saying so.
Sorry
So-
to interrupt you, Caitlin, but I just thought of a mid-tier series that B has to talk about.
Oh,
And it's the Bridget Kimmer Cursebreaker series.
I was waiting for like when we were gonna, because like, it's literally like on my screen right
God.
now, just like, yep, I'm gonna have to mention this
Oh,
one.
yeah.
You know, I am that person. I have like my demons are mostly like I'll read something that isn't great, but then I will continue with the series because that's my fuck it moment.
yeah, we know. After you read, 13 Sin and Chocolate books
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
of
45.
your own
it's fine.
free will.
You can tell I'm a teacher because I keep being like, maybe it'll get better this time. Maybe she learned something.
No.
No.
Bridget Kimmer, we love you. Cursebreakers, isn't it?
Yeah, so I remember I was looking at, so it starts with that Curse So Dark and Lonely, and it's kind of that adaptation on Beauty and the Beast, kind of.
Which that one was good.
That, yeah, but then the, last two, just the choices and the twists and turns, which also make me nervous now for...
I know, right?
Yeah, waiting for the series that I actually care about.
From what I remember, it's for those who haven't read it, it's an ACOTAR situation where they switch love interest or something, right? Or the guy starts to suck in the second book, something like that, right?
Yes, and basically the person who's lived their whole, it's kind of also like a Prince and the Pauper situation, or like basically the guard has revealed to be like the actual heir.
Oh.
Yeah, and then there's this like other kingdom that comes into play, and but it deals with the ACOTAR part of it is, well, even more so the ACOTAR part of it is that the main like love interest travels in time, so she travels to this like fantasy land.
Oh.
Yeah, and so then it's the Beauty and the Beast part of it is like there is actually like a transformation aspect to the first love interest. But yeah, like it was like, how do I explain it?
Frustration after frustration.
It was frustration after frustration, and it was like trying to make the twists and turns, but not being able to actually like hold down those loose ends. So it just like fell.
God,
It just
that
kind of fell
stresses me
apart
out.
at the end.
That stresses me
I
out
know.
for a
That-
Like I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That gives me much anxiety about Destroy the Day. It's just like,
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I have a series that was kind of like that. Well, it's a duology. So, like, for the podcast for Filth of the Month for October, we did Heart of Dracula. And so I read that one and really liked it. It was a lot like A Curse So Dark and Lonely. So I read the second book, and it was so disappointing. Like, I didn't even want to finish it. And I was like, well, I feel like I have to because I'm, like, halfway through. But yeah, like, I hate when that happens. Like, whenever the first book kind of drags you in, and then it's like, you feel like you kind of have to just keep going because you've put so much effort into it.
Yeah.
So I did that. I finally read this year that Married to Magic series with Elise Kova. I finally read A Duel with the Vampire Lord.
Oh, yeah.
And I know a lot of people really liked it, but I didn't. Like, it was a mid for me. I was like, all right, 2.5 stars, whatever.
To that same regard, I read the newest one this year, which was A Duet with the Siren Duke, and I hated it.
Oh, no!
It was so fucking boring and way too long.
So for any listeners who do not know, that book was basically catnip for Kristen.
Oh, yeah.
To, like, the premise of it. So for her to not like it means that it was probably pretty bad.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah.
I am not gonna read it. I already have, like, 50-50 chance with Elise Kova. I'm not gonna risk it anymore.
Well, I was, like,
that's
super
kind of
hopeful because, like, I've loved every single book in that series so far. And so, it's like Caitlin said, when I saw what this book was going to be, it was like catnip. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to eat this up, blah, blah, blah. And I knew I didn't like it from, like, 50 pages in. But I was like, it's going to get better. It's fine. I trust her. And I should have just gave up. Because it took me, like, 2 weeks to read, if that tells you anything.
It makes me so sad because the next one's a werewolf.
I know.
Like, it's a werewolf. It's supposed to
It's supposed
That's
to be
my
good.
catnip.
Well, that'll be your turn.
Yeah, like the vampire one and the werewolf one are my catnip. So
Everyone
hopefully
gets a disappointment in that series.
everyone gets at least one disappointment.
Mine
yeah.
was the dance with
Yeah,
the
like
Fey
someone
Prince.
chose the elf. Like, yeah, I was supposed to like the elf or dance with the elf prince or whatever. And it was like, nope.
Yeah.
Or no, the Fey prince,
Yeah,
whatever
the
it was.
Fey
Yeah.
Prince one. The Elf King was good.
Yeah, Elf
the-
King is good.
Yeah.
Elf King is definitely like the strongest in the series.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still gonna read the next one because
Oh, yeah.
like, you know.
I'm still gonna read A Duet with a Siren Duke. Like, who am I fucking kidding?
Yeah, but like it would have benefited it so much if it had been like half the length. It just felt like
Yeah.
it never fucking ended. Like there was nothing happening.
Those are the worst.
Yeah, I was like, can
Mhm.
we like move forward in the plot, please? Like I'm so bored.
Yeah. We ready to move on to our favorites?
Yes.
Well, no, so before, a mid for me was like, I read maybe my first Tessa Bailey, and it's called Secretly Yours. And I think a lot of it was more just the setting. It was like set in Napa Valley with like a vineyard, and like kind of the love interest is like this. She's a gardener. She's clearly got some unpacked trauma that she's not really able to see a therapist about, or won't see a therapist about, or whatever. And then it's like this grump professor, like the grumpy professor who comes home to his family owns the vineyard kind of thing. And it was fine, but it was like nothing special. I don't know. But I haven't read much Tessa Bailey,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
I read one and it was enough.
I need to talk about the book I just finished today.
Yes, please, 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 please.
Okay.
Oh, God. I just finished Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. And it's a queer dystopian book about someone who just escaped a cult. The cult who basically ended the world. They're trying to escape this cult, and they meet up with this teenage militia that is trying to take down the rest of the cult. But the guy who escaped the cult, Benji, he's this trans boy who also is a weapon for the cult. So basically when he leaves, the cult tries to get him back. And it's like all these things and these feelings and like, just like, it's a book purely about queer anger, and it's so good.
God.
I'm not gonna spoil it because I know Caitlin's gonna read it soon.
Yes,
But
I'm
it's
taking it
so
on vacation
good.
with me next week.
But that's the one you were sending the covers for. Like, it's
Yes.
got
Oh my God.
beautiful cover art.
Yes, and
Yeah.
all the queer like stuff that I sent this week on Warren Page Library and on our Discord were all from this book.
The cover art for that book already is like top tier. It's so good. All of these special edition covers that are coming out and covers from other countries are even more beautiful. I do not know how they improved.
I have
on
no
this
idea.
cover. No fucking
It
clue.
was already like peak cover design and they made it better.
So I finally read The Raven Cycle.
Yeah.
Do you get the hype now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely do. I think, yeah, like for me it's like, I don't know, part of it is like, even if it's not like my favorite setting and stuff, it's the writing. But yeah, so I finally started that, and it really was like part of my summer reads, like just reading it throughout the summer. And so for me it's like, this is an example of like a well put together story. You know, in terms of like tying all the loose ends and adding in more characters and putting it all together. And, you know, while all that is happening, you know, like Maggie is taking me along for, you know, everyone's changes in circumstances or, you know, what have you. And it's like, all right, I'm here and I get it. And I'm going with it, despite like this character is totally unhinged and what the fuck are they doing here still alive? But no, so I finally read that. Although it's funny, like, for whatever, I have had students in the past couple of years who absolutely have read it and loved it, but like not a single student, maybe because I'm not teaching like connected to an English class anymore, but I haven't seen a single student with it.
Yeah.
Which is different for me. But I think also, at least when I went to my public library, I think also just some more current stuff from Maggie is like showcased more, like the Scorpio races and stuff.
Yeah.
That was up there for me. I was trying to look. So an author that I like completely out of nowhere never would have like expected, but like it all worked for me, was Evita Weiss.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like we read, was it Feed that we read? No, it was Yours Insatiably.
Yeah, Yours
Yours
Insatiably.
Insatiably, yeah.
And then I actually read like another set of books. It was the Lost Touch duet, like series 1 and 2 for that.
Is that the one with the gargoyle?
The gargoyle, the banshee, and like a night terror from a serial killer's mind.
Awesome.
Off base, like not my usual thing, and I was like, all right, we're going with it, whatever. But it was again like I was able to suspend my disbelief because of decent writing. Mm-hmm. But I read more comic books like graphic novels this year than I ever have. And I tried to like push myself. So like reading certain nonfiction books that wouldn't necessarily be my typical thing, or like I read an anthology of Arctic horror stories.
Oh.
Send that my way. I want to know what it is.
Yeah, me too.
It's I do not know the pronunciation, but it's so it's a Taaq, like Taaqtumi, all one word.
Okay.
So Taaqtumi, and it's a series of a bunch of different short stories, all dealing with like horror and suspense in the Arctic. And so you have a lot of I really liked it just because for me, from a language aspect, when you study language and you study, especially like I come from ancient languages, there's an aspect of like what you see in the language in terms of like oral histories and oral storytelling features. And so I really liked some of the short stories that showcase that, where there's, how do I explain it? It's like there's a certain cadence or a pattern, or you can notice like repetition in certain ways that show up in the story, or even just honestly like different word order that shows up. And so it's just that much more authentic in terms of like, you know, the representing the context of the literature, like, you know, that it's coming from the culture that it's coming from. So I read more graphic novels and I read more horror than I typically do, because horror is not really my thing. It doesn't work for me usually. But I was trying to like expand myself. And so there was a lot of times for these where it was just like, I had to, like, luckily with the short stories, I had to like stop and put it down and like go do other stuff.
That's why I love anthologies and like short stories, because I do the same thing where I'll like read and then put it down, come back and pick it up later. And it's so nice to be able to get to a discrete ending point and then come back and pick up at a brand new section of the book.
Oh yeah. And for this one, especially, like, just horror and like the Arctic, like definitely it just like fits in. It's kind of like when you think of like what are some of the things on Earth that you think about, and the more you think about them, they terrify you, and it's like the ocean, and it's also like yeah, exactly. And so
my one phobia.
I know. Well, and this was like with the Arctic, like for me, what was really interesting with so many of these stories, the horror was not in the explicit gory detail. The horror was in basically the fade to black.
Yes.
And you were just like, oh shit. Yeah, so it was like, it took me a while. Like, it took me probably a solid, honestly, partly just life. But I, like, started reading it probably in October. And it took me to the end. Like, I literally just finished it 2 days ago. Yesterday. I finished it yesterday.
Wow.
At the end of November. But so that was, like, surprising to me that I liked it more than I thought I would have. I am not surprised I liked it because it's Holly Black. But I am also not a huge vampire person, and I finally read Holly Black's The Coldest Girl in Cold Town.
Ooh.
And I just adore Holly Black. And I don't necessarily adore vampires, but like one of the things I love about Holly Black is that she takes the lore and manages to like stay true enough to the lore that you're like, this fits. And but still like adapt things to a modern setting or like turn it slightly so that it works in a modern setting. And she absolutely does this with this, you know, what happens if we find out in a modern sense that vampires are real.
Yes.
And there is absolutely a sad, wet, pathetic boy in there.
Yes.
It wouldn't be a Holly
Of course
Black
there
book
is.
without
It's a
it.
Holly Black book.
He's not really a boy. He's an old as fuck man.
I started the first 1 or 2 chapters of this book, and then I had to like catch up with the Warren Page Library book, so I didn't finish it, but I can't wait to get back into it once I'm finished with my Storygraph challenge.
Oh yeah. I have not, I'm hoping to finish it, but I have not read like any of the book club books since basically school started. So I have just started reading the what do we call it? The smut side of the book club, but I've just started reading that like since August or whatever. Like I'm going to try and like make it up. I have 8 books to make it to my reading goal by the end of the year. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
I've had The Coldest Girl in Cold Town sitting on my bookshelf for probably 6 years. Just sitting there staring at me. Oh, I know.
Read it. No, you really should. Like, Holly will not disappoint.
Of course
she
not.
never does.
Kristen, what were your faves?
So I have 3 that I really want to bring up because I didn't mention them on the podcast at all.
Ooh.
So the first one is Library at Mount Char. Stephanie and the...
You were going off about this. Okay,
Yeah,
do it again.
so Stephanie and the book club recommended this book to me. And Caitlin's the one that kind of told me about it first because she said Stephanie won't shut the hell up about it. And so I was like, I'm
In
gonna
a
read
very
this.
positive way. Stephanie and I know each other outside of the book club. And she recommended that book to me. Unfortunately, she recommended it to me several years ago. But again, it's one of those, the stars are going to have to align perfectly for me to read it. And I told Kristen, I was like, Stephanie fucking loves this book. You should read it.
The best way I can describe it is it has the vibes of a Grady Hendrix. Like, I would compare it, like, kind of like How to Sell a Haunted House. Like, it has that kind of vibe to it, but it's, like, 10 times more buck fucking wild. Like, I don't know who I would recommend it to, and I don't even know how I would describe the plot. Because it's just, like... It's insane. Like I said, I don't even know how to describe it other than like just to tell you that it is so buck wild, but in the best way possible. Like it's funny, it's clever, it's got it's got a crazy plot. Like all the characters are so good. Like you either hate them with all the fiber of your being, or you want to like cuddle them close. Like. It's just so good. And like I said, I didn't mention it on the podcast at all because I was going to talk about it on the episode and I genuinely didn't know how. Because again, like it's impossible to explain. It's kind of like Gideon the Ninth in that way. Like it's really hard to put into words. I shouldn't say Gideon. I should say Harrow the Ninth. And then to like continue this thought, like Note of the Ninth was one of my favorite books this year.
Yeah, I didn't read it. I read it last year, so I think I've read it once this year, maybe.
You know what?
Maybe twice.
I did read it for the first time last year, but
Yeah.
I reread
Cheaters.
it this year. That's why it came up, because I listened to the audiobook this year. The other one I wanted to talk about is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross.
Has any of us here except you read this? I don't think so, right?
No.
Okay. I'm not the only one who's been I've seen people raving about it in the book club, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Where did you guys come from?
Yeah.
So, it's funny, because I was, like, in a reading slump, and I was kind of doing the stupid thing, and I was perusing Kindle Unlimited. And I saw this book, and the cover of it is beautiful.
Yeah, I like the cover. I also really like the contrast between the first book and the second book. They are incredibly similar in style, but the color scheme used, it's really good. I like the way that she did that.
So the first one's it's got a black cover, and then it's got vivid blue irises on it. It's really, really pretty. And so the cover kind of caught my eye, and I was like, you know what? I like the cover of this, and I've seen a little bit of talk about it. I knew it had been a Fairy Loot book. And so, Fairy Loot tends to have pretty good books right on their list. So I was like, I'll give it a chance. Like I said, I read it, and best book I've read this year. Absolutely amazing. The whole premise behind it is that there are these rival journalists in a fantastical country that is going to war with old gods. And they are writing for a newspaper that is covering all of this and getting the word out about what's going on. And they end up traveling unknowingly together. One of them arrives before the other. And meanwhile, while this whole war and stuff is going on, they're interacting through letters through their magically connected typewriters. So one of them will type a letter on it and drop it in their wardrobe, and the other person will receive it because their typewriters are connected with magic. Whenever they were built by the people that had them before, they were connected. And I just love that trope, I guess, where you're kind of talking with someone but you don't realize it's who they are, and maybe in real life you don't quite get along. It's kind of like You've Got Mail. But I loved it. I loved the romance in it. I loved the story. I'm devastated about the way that it ended, and I'm almost dreading reading the second one because I know it's going to be hard to read. It kind of ends on a rough cliffhanger, and the next one's going to be kind of hard to read. That's kind of how this one is. But yeah, I didn't talk about it on the podcast at all. But it's amazing, and I wish you guys would read it because I think you really like it. I mean, I got Emily and Ariana on it. So, but yeah, the second one comes out next month. It comes out in December. So I'm very, very excited for it.
Y'all, not to sound like a broken record, this is gonna be my other book in my top 3, and I'm only saying 2 books in my top 3 because this series is just my whole ass top 3. Not to be a broken record, but the Rowan Blood series by Kellen Graves, Prince of the Sorrow, Lord of Silver Ashes, Herald of the Witch's Mark. Never fucking miss. Even the spin-off book, The Fox and the Dryad, so good. Amazing. Everyone should read them.
I love the cover art for those books.
They are
so
really
good.
pretty.
I love that you've converted some of the book club, or found some
Barely
folks
any.
in the book club who
Barely any. But yeah, the covers for these books are designed by Kellen Graves' partner.
Yeah, I remember you saying
nice.
that.
Good, yeah.
I think, so some of my favorites from this year, I read Priory of the Orange Tree, which, I mean, people have been raving about that book for a long time. I do not need to tell anybody that book is good. It was incredible. And so was A Day of Fallen Night. I read both of them. I read that short story that I did on the podcast, Wild Spaces. That book, I still think about scenes from that book.
Is this book out?
Yeah, it's out now.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a novella. I keep saying book, but it's a novella.
Whatever,
yeah,
same
it's out.
thing.
It came out in August. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I read that back in January.
Yes.
And then I also got an arc
Yes.
of Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands, and I can't fucking wait. If I don't get an arc of the third book, and I have to wait for the third book to fucking come out so I can know what happens, I'm going to die. I cannot wait that long. Another big favorite of mine this year, I don't think I didn't talk about it on the podcast, and I didn't really mention it in the book club either, but I got an arc of this book called The Surviving Sky by Kritika H. It is very difficult to explain, but it's kind of a like sci-fi futuristic book. It's like way far in the future, and Earth's surface is covered in all of these really, really bad storms, like humongous countrywide storms. So people can't live on the ground anymore. They live in floating cities that can fly and like outrun the storms. And the two main characters in the novel, the husband is an engineer, so he's one of the people that basically flies the city. So he's like a huge important person in the community. And his wife is kind of like the community fuck up. Like she doesn't really have a place, and in a city like this, everybody needs to have a place, you know, like everything needs to run like a well-oiled machine whenever you have something where it's life or death every single day. And it was the most beautiful exploration of like a married couple's relationship I think I've ever seen in my entire life. It was so fucking good.
I think I remember you talking to me about this one.
I think I did talk about this a little bit, but because these two people come from such different places in the community, they have a really hard time seeing each other's perspective. And it doesn't come from anywhere malicious. Like the entire book, you can tell that despite the things that they have done to hurt one another or the things that they have done to push one another away, they love each other so, so much. And they are willing to try and work on the things, like they are trying to understand each other's perspective and point of view as much as they can. But it was amazing. It was so fucking good. Like I cannot wait for the next book in that series to come out. That one, it wasn't like a cliffhanger, but it ended in a spot of the story that I was like, wait, what the fuck? This is it? Are you kidding me? I don't get to know what happens next. That was one of I think that might have been in my top 3 of this year. It was so good.
Just to go back a little bit, I remember with Wild Spaces, because there's like, it's part of kind of almost a coming of age story tied to it. And it just then you were talking about how like there are parts of that. And like I read Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Lane.
Yes.
Which has like slightly biographic elements, like parts of it for him, but it also deals with kind of a coming of age, but it also has fantasy tied into it, and it's just such good writing. But like, because it was such good writing, and I remember when I talked about it, did I talk about it on the podcast?
Mm-mm.
But I remember it was just like, I'm gonna have to reread this just because like it was so good that I know I missed something. And like, so for me, you know, despite not fitting necessarily the actual like features of the main character, is like there are parts of that story that definitely still come up just in my day-to-day where I'm like, oh, that scene. Oh, yeah, that scene. But more importantly, Caitlin, I am once again coming forward to tell you that you need to read The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi.
I know. I know. Trust me.
This is my Bernie Sanders meme moment. I'm like, I need you to read this book.
I know.
Caitlin, I think I know what you were going to say.
I was going to say, lady, do you want to
Camp Damascus.
Yes, let's fucking talk about Camp Damascus.
It's so good.
Now that you have read it.
It's so good. So I read the audiobook, and it's just like the whole time just like feeling seen by a character who's like queer and autistic and like struggling with it and like has all these little quirks that I also have.
Oh my god.
Chef's kiss. Chuck Dingle, the best.
So fucking good.
And immediately, like following it immediately after with Hell Followed With Us, like just perfect.
Yeah.
How have none of us mentioned Mysteries of Thorn Manor?
I haven't read it.
Oh, I thought that
Listen, because we all know.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about that or The Stolen Heir because we all knew that was in our top, like, 5.
Well, I didn't mention The Stolen Heir because we did an entire fucking episode about it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, I forgot that B hadn't read it, but that book, like, rewired our brain chemistry for, like, a solid month when it came out.
Oh, yeah. I still think about it.
Oh, yeah, I did too.
Still think about the suit of armor.
Yeah.
Still.
But yeah, Camp Damascus, I'm so glad that you read it. I knew that you were going to love it.
I
And
love it.
it was just so fucking good. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it.
I think I'm going to read it around Christmas, like when I have more time. Work's been nuts lately. Like, I've been having trouble even reading the book club books, but it's like, it's definitely like up there. Like, I put it above a lot of other books I need to read first because it just sounded so good.
Yeah.
Do you all have a Warren Page Library favorite for this year?
Huh. Bold of you to assume I remember all the ones we read this year.
That's, yeah.
His Majesty's Dragon, 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake, What Moves the Dead, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, Two Wrongs Make a Right, Sense and Second Degree Murder. In April, we had Metamorphosis. In May, we had Twilight. In June, we had The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry. July was The Bodyguard. August was a bunch of murder mysteries. September was The Bear and the Nightingale. October and November were both Grady Hendrix books. And December, I have not written down yet.
I think it's so funny that Grady Hendrix won 2 months in a row.
I know.
King.
I bring that up because I'm pretty sure Horror Store is my favorite from this year.
Yeah, Horror Store, I love that book.
I really like How to Sell a Haunted House. I really, really liked that book. But I think if
I could convert you all to Grady Hendrix.
Yes.
Yeah,
I wanted to buy
read
that
his
one with the
books for a
pretty
while.
like VHS cover so bad, but my bookstore didn't have it.
No.
I was really bummed.
If I had to pick another one, it's kind of a tie between Final Girls and 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake. I really liked both of those.
They could not be more different.
Oh,
I
each
know,
other,
right?
too. That's so funny.
I was gonna say.
I know.
And also could not be more different, like, to my picks for the best book of the month. But
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
That's why I love this book club. I love that we all have, like, different tastes and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do too.
I really liked His Majesty's Dragon.
Yes, I
and
liked it
think
too.
See,
one
that
of
was
the-
a DNF for me. I couldn't even finish it.
You
I
also
love
don't
this.
like Naomi Novik in general.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
But there's just something about her writing style.
I fucking love those books. I have all of them, and I reread all of them when we read His Majesty's Dragon at the beginning of the year.
Damn. I also really like The Bear and the Nightingale.
Me too.
I want to finish the series because I really,
Mhm.
really liked it.
I made the mistake of trying to listen to the audiobook for it, and I just could not get into it, so I ended up listening to Final Girls instead. But I need to get back into it. I didn't ever finish that one either.
I think I liked. I don't know if it was necessarily a favorite, but I definitely liked also from the book club, The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry. Like, I liked the novelty
Yeah, I like that too.
of it.
I didn't like it enough to continue the series, though.
Yeah, I didn't continue either. I think I might. You know me.
I thought
Fuck
about it. I think I put it on my, like, library, like, holds, and then never came true, and I was like, I don't want that anymore.
Another one I really liked was Two Wrongs Make a Right.
I was waiting for you to mention that because you liked it so much you brought it up on the podcast.
Yeah, I really do like that book. I want to read the next one. It just came out maybe like a month or two ago. Again, I haven't had time, but I will read the next one for sure, and I really liked the first one. I just love Jamie Westenberg so much.
Do you have an overall favorite, one particular book that's your overall favorite for the entire year before we close out?
Divine Rivals.
Just Prince of the Sorrows.
The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi.
not Prince of the Sorrows, but Lord of Silver Ashes, because I hate myself.
Is that the second one?
Yes.
Wasn't that one like
So good.
super fucking depressing?
It's so sad. I love it so much.
That is the same vibe as my favorite book of all time being If We Were Villains.
Yes.
But also Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of
God.
Fairies.
I
That book
also
is
read
so
that
good.
one. I ended up reading it, and it's so good.
Yeah.
Caitlin, what was yours?
I don't know. The problem is, I've been saving, I have a lot of books right now, that I know are going to be, like, probably favorites for me for the year, but I'm about to go on vacation on next Wednesday. I'm going to be gone for an entire week, and I am planning on reading some of them while I'm on vacation. So I haven't quite chosen a favorite, I don't think, this year. If I had to pick right now, I would probably say it was the 2 Emily Wilde books, Encyclopedia of Fairies and Map of the Other Lands, just because, I don't know, I love them. They're they're so fun, and the lore is fantastic.
It's amazing.
And the characters are so lovable. I just love them. They're so good. They're so fucking good.
I have an honorable mention, which is A Fragile Enchantment.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
That book was so good. I feel like it didn't stand a good chance of being my overall favorite because I read it so late in the year.
Yeah.
But it is really, really great. And I have a strong feeling that A Darker Drowning Tide will be in my top for 2024. But definitely honorary mention.
Well, guys, I think that is a wrap. We have talked about all of our favorites of the year. I don't think we could wring any more favorites out of this conversation if we tried.
We haven't mentioned the Stone and Air.
No, but like Kristen said, we did a whole episode on the Stolen Air. So
there's
I
not
don't
much
think
more
we're
to
legally
say.
obligated to mention it again.
Yeah, all my honorable mentions are books that I've mentioned on the podcast.
Yeah.
So, fun little fact. So, we talked about at the beginning of the episode that this episode that we're recording right now comes out on Caitlin's birthday. But what you guys may or may not know is that my birthday comes very shortly after. And the group has decided that...
Yeah.
Because I didn't decide. They have
Evil
decided that my birthday
I just love that we
episode...
started the episode with Caitlin making demands about, like, the best present ever, and then,
And
we're
then
going to talk
I am
about
getting-
the torture.
I am
Yeah.
getting tortured for my birthday. And
We just love you so much.
If you haven't been made aware, if your whole life doesn't revolve around this one thing, that Nightbane, which is the second book of the Lightlark series, came out a couple of weeks ago.
Nightsbane.
I have acquired a totally legal EPUB of it. And for my birthday, we will be going through that book. So if you haven't listened to the Lightlark
we will.
episode...
Yeah!
We
So
got
if
a
you have
whole Night's Bane episode planned, ladies
Yeah,
and
so
gentlemen.
that's all we're gonna talk
and
about.
Non-binary friends.
So, if you haven't listened to the Lightlark episode, I think it's number 7. It's Grim Coleslaw. You can't miss it.
I was listening to it to prepare for the Night's Bane episode so I could recap.
So excited.
It's so... I'm so excited. Like, Kristen is basically... Kristen is basically being tortured. She's being held against her will. And, like, Lady B and I are gleefully holding hands and skipping down in, like, a beautifully flowered field while Kristen... we step on Kristen the whole way.
That was a much nicer metaphor than what I was thinking of. It was more something like, I don't know, more like we're in town and we're just like throwing refuse at her, like rotten tomatoes and stuff.
It's like, I started this book a couple of weeks ago, like whenever I first got my EPUB of it, and I had forgotten how truly awful these books are. Like, I trust me, I remembered
You
how
sent us the map and I just...
It's so bad.
I threw things.
It is so fucking bad. I read like 10 pages tops and I was like, this is gonna be torturous. I am so dreading getting into this book, but I know it'll be a blast to talk about. It's just the journey. I don't know that it's worth the destination.
Yeah, you're very strong. Like, honestly, I could not.
Yeah.
She's very strong,
no,
but she
can't.
also did not have a choice.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
she mentioned something, I think, like, offhandedly about not wanting to read it, and we were all like, well, too fucking bad.
Yeah.
It
was
sucks
like,
to
well,
be you.
Sucks
Yeah.
to be you, but I have to know what happens, and I'm not fucking reading it, so...
Yeah.
Really, what should happen is that you should get drunk to read this book, and either through, like, voice memos or snaps, just record your reactions, and that'll be the episode. Is just we compile that.
Yep.
The audio from that. No.
And our
with,
live
like,
reactions to it.
No, and yeah.
Listen, I'm not against this idea.
Something where you don't have to quite relive the horror of actually taking notes and, like, going through the process of committing that from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, because I fear for your life minutes.
Yeah. I already lost a lot of life minutes with Lightlark.
Well, we all have a cross to bear, and this one's yours.
Okay.
Caitlin
At least
is
your cross to bear is
ruthless.
sticky shade. You have it way better than me, and I hate that I said that.
I do have it better, but I still have a cross. I'm still bearing it. Yeah, I have no sympathy, and I am ruthless, so...
Okay. Well, Happy birthday, Caitlin. My birthday's gonna suck ass, so.
Yes. On that note, everybody get ready for our Knight's Bane featurette coming in January. We won't see you before then. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for listening, and happy birthday to me.
Yay! Happy birthday! Happy New Year!
Happy.
And also, today is the day, like, that we're recording. It's the day of our podcast birthday. So,
Oh yeah! So happy birthday to the podcast!
birthday.
Yay!
Yes.
Our baby's 1.
1 year old.
We nurtured her so well.
Did we?
Did we?
Alright, bye.
Alright, bye. You can find us at Red in the Dark Pod on Instagram and Tumblr. Our email is redinthedarkpod@gmail.com if you want to ask a question about any of the books we discussed in this episode. We also have a book club. You can find us at Worn Page Library on Instagram and Tumblr, which will have details on how to join our Discord. We discussed a lot of books in this episode. We're not going to list them all, but we will list some of our top favorites. Taaqtumi, an anthology of Arctic horror stories. Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. The Raven Cycle series by Maggie Stiefvater. Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney. The Surviving Sky by Kritika H. The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson. And The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. Keep reading, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye!
Bye.
Bye.